I was the very first person to publicly identify this issue 16 years ago. And if I'd raised the kind of funding that I was looking for then, the kind of funding that gets lavished on white tech bros all the time, I could have scaled Make Love Not Porn's impact so that we'd be looking at a different world today. So quite frankly, that is the number one thing that pisses me off big time.
Strap yourself in for Keeping It Real with Jack and Rao.
Welcome back, Keepers, to another episode of Keeping It Real with Jack and Rao. However, I'm missing my mate. Rao's not with me right now, but she is going to join me a little later when we debrief this incredibly interesting, provocative and insightful conversation with somebody we both think defines keeping it real. Today's guest needs no polite preamble because polite has never been her thing. Cindy Gallop is a force of nature. A badass Brit living in New York with a sharp tongue, an even sharper brain, and zero patience for bullshit. She's the fearless founder of Make Love Not Porn. She's the original marketing provocateur and a fierce advocate for women, older people, and anyone the world tries to sideline. She doesn't just talk diversity, she demands it. She doesn't whisper about negotiation, she schools it. And when the advertising world needs shaking up, Cindy didn't knock, she kicked the damn door in. So buckle up. This is Keeping It Real with the woman who always does. Cindy Gallop, what an honour and a privilege.
Thank you, Jack. I'm thrilled to be here.
Now, you're just down the road from me, which is a bit weird because I live in Melbourne and you live in New York, but I'm currently in New York for a week. So I took full advantage of getting hold of you. And because you're one of the most generous celebrities that is going around, you agreed to come on Keeping It Real. So thank you for that. I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you, but as I said to you, you go in any direction you want because this is about keeping it real. You are so well known for so many things, so many things. I've been following you for years as a woman in advertising and very taken with what you are currently doing. Why are you so passionate about what you do? Where did it start?
First of all, Jack, everything in my life and career has happened by accident. So I've never consciously and intentionally planned anything.
Good.
And so, things come along that I feel strongly about. And then secondly, all I'm doing is I'm living and working my values. And that is very important to me.
And you make that sound so obvious and so easy, yet most people don't, right?
Well, what I recommend to people, if they've never done this, is take a long, hard look inside yourself and identify what you stand for. What you believe in, what you value, what you're all about. And the reason to do that is, first of all, that makes life so much simpler because life still throws at you all the shit it always will, but you know exactly how to respond to that shit in any given scenario in a way that is true to you. And that is honestly the secret of happiness, living your life and working your work in a way that is always true to yourself. But I also recommend this because, I'm quite often asked, Cindy, how do you get to be this confident? And my response is usually it's 65 years of life. But I would like to shortcut that process for everybody else. And so honestly, when you know that you are living and working your values, that is what enables you to not give a damn what anybody else thinks. Because the only thing that matters is that you are being true to yourself.
It's incredibly refreshing. Have you always been like that? Or is this something that has actually come into play later in life?
65 years of life. Yep. I mean, we all learn as we grow.
Yeah. Do you think that you might have picked up on this earlier than a lot of others?
No, not necessarily. From the moment we're born as women, everything around us conspires to make us feel insecure about absolutely everything to do with ourselves. The way we look, the way we talk, the way we dress. Nice girls do this, nice girls don't do that. We spend the rest of our lives coming back from that, and many women never do. And, growing up, I was just as insecure as anybody else. It is literally what I said. The process of growing older, the experiences that life brings, make you realize what is truly important.
I couldn't agree more. I've had a corporate life for a long, long time, so 25 years running marketing functions on the agency side and then as the client, on the client side. And remembering that, well, corporate comms was my biggest nemesis because I was being monitored constantly for what I said, and what platforms I used, because I was representing that brand and being paid very handsomely to do that. And I understood the game. Yeah. So no problems. I remember finishing corporate life, going out on my own as my own brand, and finally being empowered and ready and freed to say, well, actually, here's what I think. And I don't mind if you don't like it, because I've always thought it, but now I represent me, not somebody else. Is that the same for you? Once you were your own brand and you didn't have to rely on an agency or being, representing somebody else, that you were able to actually then really say what you felt?
Absolutely. I left the corporate advertising world in 2005, and I remember that fall, I had been booked to speak at I think it was an entertainment and media conference in LA, and I was crafting that talk. And I suddenly realized that in that talk, I could say whatever I wanted.
Mm.
And it was a revelation because for many years, I'd been giving talks, but I'd been giving talks as the CEO of BBH New York, the chairman of BBH New York. And so, when I gave a talk, I had to make sure that it was in line with the agency agenda,
Of course.
that I didn't say anything that would upset our clients. And so it was a revelation to suddenly realize that I could now put my own ideas out there and I could say whatever the hell I wanted. So yes, absolutely.
Well, thank God for that. And thank God that we have that opportunity and the platforms now that we can listen to you. Here's a question. What really pisses you off?
What really pisses me off is that I still can't find investors and funding for my business, Make Love Not Porn.
Bullshit.
So honestly, that is far and away the biggest thing that pisses me off. I mean, first of all, everybody is watching adolescents on Netflix going, oh my God. And, I was the very first person 16 years ago at TED to highlight the issues that adolescence has surfaced 16 years later. Everybody's going, oh my God, Stella, what can we do? And I'm going, I've got the solution.
I've got the
Secondly, just today, yet another man on LinkedIn went, oh my God, Lily Phillips, Bonnie Blue, blah, 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 blah. And so once again, I had to jump into the comments and then quote post that going, I was the very first person to publicly identify this issue 16 years ago. And if I'd raised the kind of funding that I was looking for then, the kind of funding that gets lavished on white tech bros all the time, I could have scaled Make Love Not Porn's impact so that we'd be looking at a different world today. So quite frankly, that is the number one thing that pisses me off big time.
So why aren't you being funded? What is it about Make Love Not Porn, helping particularly young men recognise what reality should be, which therefore helps relationships? We know the secret to a happy life is relationships. Why aren't people funding?
Sure. So basically, Jack, even though I have a business whose mission is to ultimately help end rape culture globally, and by the way, that may sound like a very big mission. We have 12 years of proof of concept at a micro level. We help end rape culture by doing something very simple that nevertheless nobody else anywhere is doing. We end rape culture by showing you how wonderful great consensual communicative sex is in the real world. Our social sex videos that Make Love Not Porn role model good sexual values, good sexual behavior. And here's the important part. We make all of that aspirational versus what you see in porn and popular culture. One man left a comment saying, this video makes me want to be a better man in the bedroom and in life. We can do that. But here's my challenge, finding investors. I know that my investors are out there and that there are a ton of them. And by the way, there are a ton of them in every single country in the world. I know that there are a ton of investors who would absolutely fund me in Australia, for example. The issue is that these investors are impossible for me to find by the usual means because they all have one thing in common. Your willingness to fund Make Love Not Porn is entirely a function of your personal sexual journey. It's a function of your personal lens on sex and sexuality that's been shaped by your own experience of it And obviously, I have no way to research and target for that. Not least because sex is the area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside.
No.
The people who look like they would totally get it don't. The people who look like complete prudes do. And by the way, if your personal experience of sex has been negative, there is no rational business funding argument that will ever break through that. And so what I have to do is I put what I'm doing out there all the time across all my social channels. I do every media interview I'm asked to, go on every podcast. I have to make synaptic connections happen that will attract those investors to me. This is obviously a long, slow, painful, and highly inefficient process. So that's the issue.
Amazing. How much funding do you need?
So we last year launched our first ever equity crowdfunding campaign on WeFunder. And it's our first ever because historically, like every other piece of business infrastructure, no crowdfunding platform would touch Make Love Not Porn with a barge pole. The prejudice, the bias, applies everywhere. But the wonderful actress Jamila Jamil is a big fan. She interviewed me on her podcast, loves Make Love Not Porn. She talks very candidly about how porn impacted her self-esteem, her relationships growing up. And so she proposed that she lead an equity crowdfunding campaign as our lead investor and brought us to WeFunder.
Brilliant.
So we launched our WeFunder last year. We targeted just over $1 million. And I honestly thought in 2024, between my and Jamila's following, we should be able to raise that. It's a year later. We have only managed to raise $450,000. And our campaign ends at the end of this month on April 30th. And so there's a gap of over $600,000, which I'm doing my damnedest to encourage everyone to make up in the time left. And for our listeners, they should understand that this is a battle I'm fighting on behalf of all of us, because last year, only 1.7% of all venture capital went to female founders. And by the way, the indication this year is that number is declining. And that is a huge problem, because that is why we have still not seen how much safer, better, happier, and way more lucrative the future of the internet can be when it's designed through the female lens and built through the female lens at, and here are the two key words, at scale. Because it doesn't matter how many people like me start brilliant ventures if we cannot scale that impact, that proven impact. I represent the triple whammy of unfundability. I'm female, I'm older, and I have a sex tech venture. And by the way, I actually represent the quadruple whammy of unfundability because I am also a woman of color. I'm half Chinese, but I'm white passing. So I don't actually count that as an obstacle in my case. It is for many other female founders of color.
Sure.
What is especially frustrating about this is, I designed Make Love Not Porn to be fully diverse and inclusive, and we are. Our members, our Make Love Not Porn stars, are all ages 18 to 80. All races, ethnicities. We're a global platform. And by the way, Australia is, I think, currently our fourth or fifth highest source of traffic, and always has been. Our members and our Make Love Not Porn stars, as we call our contributors, are male, female, trans, non-binary, straight, LGBTQ, asexual. But in the 12 years that we've operated, we've discovered that Make Love Not Porn is especially a revelation to men. More men send us grateful emails, leave appreciative comments than anybody else, because we are something utterly unique that men will find nowhere else on the internet, which is a safe space where men can be and watch other men being open, emotional, and vulnerable around sex. You would not believe the number of men who write to us regularly and say, I just watched my first video on Make Love Not Porn, and afterwards I cried. I've said for years, I wish society understood the opposite of what it thinks is true. Women enjoy sex just as much as men, and men are just as romantic as women. Yet neither gender is allowed to openly celebrate either of those facts. We would all be so much better off if they were. I picked up a wonderful Twitter exchange some time back between two men. The first man had tweeted, as a joke, obviously, "Hey guys, got this really weird fetish. I've got this kink where I want to watch porn where people are honest, loving, loyal, decent, and really like each other. Hit me up with your hottest links, please." And another man replied and said, "There's this website called MakeLoveNotPorn where you can watch real couples making love." He said, "I watched a video where the woman said to her man, 'I love you,' while they're making love. He said, sincerely, I cried when I heard that."
Beautiful.
We are one of the solutions to toxic masculinity. We are the antithesis of Andrew Tate. And that is why it is literally criminal that we cannot find investors and funding.
Let's change that. And it is one step at a time, and it's never easy. Choose your hard, and this is bloody worth choosing. So what we will do is add your details to our show notes, just in case this goes post April 30th, or people want to donate or even someone invest. So leave that with us. How do you maintain the energy, the rage to keep fighting diversity, keep fighting for women being paid equally, keep fighting for how women get funding? How do you keep that energy?
I get asked this regularly also about how, what keeps me going through all of the obstacles I battle with Make Love Not Porn. And the same answer applies to my own business and the broader advocacy work I do. First of all, the first reason, two reasons. The first reason is, at Make Love Not Porn, our community writes to us every day and tells us how we've changed their lives. I know I have a venture with enormous beneficial social impact. And the only thing holding me back is lack of access to capital. With my broader advocacy work, women and men write to me every day and tell me how what I'm doing is helping them. I get many messages on LinkedIn. And, as I said, it's not just from women. I love it when men message me. One man messaged me and said, I'm a white man. I'm a, classic, he said, when I first came across you, I thought you were just showboating. And he said, you have made me change my perspective. I've absolutely seen the world differently because of you. I have two daughters. I want them to grow up in a very different world. Everything you are doing is changing that for them. I'm so grateful. I love it when I get a message like that.
Yeah.
So first of all, what keeps you going is seeing the impact that I know I can have. And the second thing is, and again, this applies across the board, the thing that most motivates me is the dynamic that I characterize as, I'm going to fucking well show you. You tell me it can't be done, I'm going to fucking well show you. You put an obstacle in my path, I'm going to fucking well show you. So I absolutely feel that with Make Love Not Porn. The more you refuse to fund what I know is the startup the world asked for, the venture the world needs, I'm going to absolutely find a way to get that done because I'm going to fucking well show you. And equally, I know what a future designed and built through the female lens could do to make life better for all of us. And I'm absolutely determined to fucking well show you by helping make that happen. So those are the two things that keep me going.
Not a wonder you've got more energy than most, because those are very purposeful reasons to keep doing that. Are you noticing, because I know you're talking to young guys, you're dating them, which is even better. I've got a 26-year-old son, and he talks about porn, and he talks about his mates who have watched too much of it, who now don't know how to speak to women. So he's got a bit of a media following. So he talks about get off the porn, boys. This is not good. So this is peer-to-peer stuff here. So there is, or there appears to be, based on my bubble, and it is a bubble, a bit of a change, a bit of a backlash from young men. Are you seeing that at all?
So the key thing about that, Jack, first of all, is, I'm going to say what I say when, again, over the years, people ask me, so, Cindy, when do you think all of this will change? When do you think we'll be less repressed about sex, able to, and my response is always, you've asked that question in the wrong way, because you've asked that question in the passive tense. All of this changes when you and I and everyone else make it change, and I don't wait for things to change, I make them change. For 16 years, I've parallel pathed two things: working to build Make Love Not Porn, working to change the business and cultural context around it. Because when you have a truly world-changing startup, you have to change the world to fit it, not the other way around. And so, no, I'm not seeing this change of its own volition, like some kind of social wave. This changes when people like me make it change. And there are a ton of people trying to make it change. And so what we are raising funding to build, MakeLoveNotPorn.academy, the platform the parents and teachers began begging me for from day one of Make Love Not Porn. Please give us the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education expansion, what you do. I had this idea 10 years ago. It's been in the pipeline ever since because that's how long investors have refused to fund it. But this is a platform that aggregates the best of the world's sex education content that is already out there, that's been blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere.
Yeah.
Because in 16 years, I've built up a huge network all around the world, including Australia, of amazing sex educator friends, people absolutely with the same agenda as I have, fighting all the same battles. They face all the same obstacles. Their accounts get suspended on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Their content gets blocked. They're banned from promoting themselves. That's why I'm building Make Love Not Porn Academy, to showcase the work that all of them do, because open, healthy education on sex, love, intimate relationships is being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere. And it doesn't matter what young men say to each other. Society is militating against that change coming when it censors everything that people like me do. Yeah. That's the problem. So no, nothing will change unless we get the funding we deserve to make these solutions happen. Again, the keywords are at scale. It's like, that man who posted this morning about, oh my God, Lily Phillips, Bonnie Blue, porn. People love talking about the solution. Oh my God, nobody's championing and funding. And people love talking about the problem. Nobody's funding and championing the solution. And the fact this man had never heard of Make Love Not Porn because we don't have the capital to be able to scale our impact so more people are aware of us. That's the problem.
That is a problem, which let's try and change that. Let's do everything we can to change that. Just touching on confidence, do you see more confidence today from younger female generations? I'm talking about sort of in business in generally, whether it's marketing, advertising, corporate life, compared to when you were working and as a younger female or as a female in business. Are you seeing that change? Is there a change there?
So the unfortunate thing there, Jack, is first of all, absolutely, because honestly, I see and I meet such impressive girls and young women today, and I go, bloody hell, I was never like that at your age. So no, there are amazing girls and women out there. But as long as we live in a patriarchal, misogynistic society, which we do, okay, and for our listeners, it's very important to separate that out from. There are many wonderful men out there who are desperately unhappy living in a patriarchal, misogynistic society as well. But as long as we do, nothing gives patriarchal and misogynistic men more pleasure than to cut those girls and women down. First of all, by absolutely setting out to abuse and humiliate them in any way they can. And by that, I mean the horrific explosion of intimate image abuse. And I would encourage our listeners to understand the correct term is not deepfake porn, because that trivializes what is a criminal issue. Intimate image abuse, digital image abuse is what it is. That is absolutely a way of humiliating girls and women and shutting their voices down. And so on the one hand, yes, I see amazing girls and women. And on the other hand, I see the horrific tools. The progress of the internet and technology has given the misogynists in our society to be able to shut those women up, often forever.
Yeah. Is the advertising world changing? Is it improving in any way when it comes to more women in senior creative roles?
Nope. And it's not improving because, and I've been saying this for years, but I continue to say it because it's still true. The reason there is zero change in our industry is because at the top of our industry is a closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys. Those white guys are sitting very pretty. They've got their enormous salaries, their gigantic bonuses, their big pools of stock options, their lavish expense accounts. Why on earth would they ever want to rock the boat? In the past, because now, unfortunately, they feel it's a lot less. In the past, they had to talk diversity. In the past, they had to appoint chief diversity officers. They had to have diversity initiatives. They had to say the word diversity a lot, especially in public. Secretly, deep down inside, they don't want to change a thing because the system is working just fine for them as it currently is. It's like the old joke about the light bulb. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. And in our industry, the light bulb does not really want to change.
And are you seeing that across the big networked agencies as well as the smaller independent agencies?
I'm seeing it across the big network holding companies.
Yeah.
And big global agencies much more than in the smaller agencies.
Yeah.
But again, it's exactly the same issue. Here in the US, only 1% of all ad agencies are female founded and owned. And by the way, to understand how much potential is being held back by lack of funding and support, I recommend a wonderful podcast called Own It, which was started by Christy Heiler, who is the female owner of an agency here in the US called Cornett. She has interviewed, I think at the last count, over 100 amazing female agency owners about their businesses. Every one of those episodes, and she's also interviewed me, is an absolute demonstration of what I've been saying for years, which is there is a huge amount of money to be made out of taking women seriously.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely gobsmacking that in an industry of which we are the primary target for all advertising, because women are the primary purchasers and primary influencers of purchase in every category, including, by the way, categories traditionally thought to be male. I don't know the stats for this in Australia, but I can tell you that here in the US, for many, many years, I think for the past 15 years, more women have held driver's licenses than men. There are more women driving cars here in America than men. The majority of the very all-important first-time car buyer market, millennials and now Gen Z, the majority buyers are women. And it's all important because that is the point at which car mark preferences are set with your very first car.
Correct.
Yet, who is the automotive industry targeting their product design, dealerships, advertising, and CRM at? It's absolutely ridiculous that we have a male-dominated industry when the primary target of all advertising is women.
That's incredible. I'm a young female employee of an advertising agency or maybe a marketing company, and I'm seeing bad behavior play out, and I'm starting to question either my choice of industry or field. What would your advice be to me?
What I recommend to women in the advertising industry is start your own industry. And when I say that, I mean start your own business. But I deliberately articulate like that because when you start your own business, you can make it work exactly the way you want it to. You can design in the workplace culture in which you thrive, the work-life balance that is what you want to operate, the business model that is how you make money the way you want to make money. And when you do that, you are starting the industry we all want to live and work in. And so I recommend doing two things. The first is take a long, hard look around you at our industry and identify through your unique female lens what you think is missing that should be there. What you would love to make use of yourself that you can't because nobody built it. What you can bring to the table that nobody else has, and then start that. Because we have not even begun to see how our industry can be completely reinvented through the female lens. And then the second part of that exercise I recommend is, so I have a wonderful friend, Natalie Molina-Nino, who's an amazing entrepreneur investor. And some years ago, she wrote a book called Leapfrog. And this is a guide for female founders. And it's called Leapfrog because she interviewed a ton of women founders, myself included, about all of the obstacles that we faced building our business and how we overcame them. So it's called Leapfrog because the idea is it enables the women who come after us to leapfrog those obstacles because we've given them the solutions.
Brilliant.
So I highly recommend reading that book. But there's a line in there from Natalie that I quote all the time, because she talks about how, we're always encouraged to, find your passion and then pursue that. Find what you're passionate about, find a job doing that, build a business around your passion. And Natalie says, forget passion, find things you want to punch. And so what I say to women is, because I've been recommending for years to women that they get very, very angry. And again, I've recommended that because we are never encouraged to get angry. Again, nice girls don't do that, But when we get angry, we make shit happen. And so I encourage the women in our industry to, again, take a long, hard look at the industry and identify what makes you red hot with rage on a daily basis. What pisses you off no end. What constantly frustrates you, build a solution to that. Because I can guarantee that millions of people will pay good money for it.
And will share that anger. I love it. Great advice. What's something most people don't know about you, Cindy?
Very little, quite frankly, because with me, what you see is what you get. It's all out there. I mean, really, I can't think of anything. It's all out there.
It's all out there. Your mum, you're obviously very close to her. You're about to fly to London and see her. She was born in Malaysia of Chinese heritage, of which, of course, you're part that too, and part English. What sort of role has she played in you being a bit fired up, or did she not?
Well, I mean, first of all, my mother was absolutely my first and best role model. She always worked because, she absolutely had to. My parents were both teachers by background. We were poor growing up, and so she always worked. And so that was a terrific role model.
Yeah.
But
true.
Also, she was a very astute businesswoman. Yeah. So I grew up in Brunei because my father got a job there as an assistant headmaster to school. We moved out there when I was 6. And so my mother originally taught, but my father then got promoted to be the headmaster of a school. And we moved to a little town called Tutong, which was, in the more rural area of Brunei. And my mother had my younger sister, Melanie, and Tutong had no kindergarten for Melanie to go to school at. So my mother started one, so that she could teach Melanie, but she also opened it up to any Tutong residents' kids. And she called it Happy Kindergarten. And it was a howling success, so loads of local people in Tutong, put their kids into Happy Kindergarten. And then, of course, the kids need to graduate and move on up. So then she started her own independent school, primary 1, which is what, primary 2, And so she built an entire private school, hired teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So she was fantastically entrepreneurial. And, what is a huge shame is, my mother was born into an era where, as far as the Chinese and, the Malaysian Chinese, which is one were concerned, the sons went to university and the daughters went to teacher training college.
Yeah.
And if my mother could have gone to university and gone into business, she would absolutely have been a global tycoon by now.
Absolutely.
And that's, that's so unfortunate, because she is a product of her time, obviously. But no, I mean, she is absolutely amazing.
She has certainly been an inspiration to you. The apple does not fall far from the tree. It's just a different generation. Does she understand what you're doing with Make Love Not Porn?
So what I always say is my father, when he was alive, he died a few years ago.
Sorry.
And my mother, I mean, we never talked about it in any detail, but I'd say to people, my parents know I'm doing something good. And what I also say is, my mother's Chinese. The day Make Love Not Porn makes an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money is a day she's absolutely fine with it.
I absolutely say that was the best thing that my daughter ever did, and I told her so. I love it. I absolutely love it. I know you're busy. One last question. What do you do, Cindy, to keep it real?
Honestly, what I do is, I just keep it real myself in order to encourage other people to keep it real as well. Because, we don't have enough role models in our society willing to speak up for the fact that you do not have to live your life as you're expected to be amazingly happy. I mean, that is why, I'm very open about, first of all, the fact that I've never, ever wanted to be married, that I've never wanted children. Very glad I always knew that as opposed to finding out the hard way by having them. I adore being single. I'm not a relationship person. I cannot wait to die alone. I date younger men casually and recreationally for sex. I'm deliberately public about all of that because I want people to see that you don't have to subscribe to the bill of goods that popular culture sells you, especially when you're women. I'm also very public about all of the challenges I face with Make Love Not Porn. I'm not, because too many founders of businesses feel that they've got to keep up this facade where we're crushing it. It's like, and I just go, life is shit.
It's hard.
Because, and by the way, it's. I coined the hashtag some years back, startup stress, because I realized that if you looked at my social media, my life could ostensibly look very glamorous. I'm traveling around the world. I'm traveling because I have to support myself alongside Make Love Not Porn. Until I raise the kind of funding I'm looking for, I can't pay myself a salary that covers all my living costs, and so I have to coach, consult, speak. So all that travel is speaking gigs that I have to do to earn a living.
It's a job.
And so I coined the hashtag startup stress, and I just began speaking very openly about all of the barriers I face. I mean, I can tell you and our audience now that I've just been going through an incredibly stressful time because last month, the bank that Make Love Not Porn has banked with for the past 9 years debanked us, kicked us out because of what we are in 2025. And I can't even tell you the stress of dealing with that, finding, fortunately, another bank that welcomed us, women-led, not coincidentally. But that's created all sorts of immediate, short-term problems for us in terms of how we operate the business. So I'm just very candid about all of that because, if as an investor you want to know why we haven't grown rapidly, here's why we haven't grown rapidly. Every piece of business infrastructure other tech startups take for granted, we can't. The small print always says no adult content. So I have to tell you, it's remarkably de-stressing when you are open about your stress, because you're not stressed trying to keep the facade up, hide the fact it's all going to shit, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually recommend to people, be completely open about, keep it real, be completely open about everything you're going through, because people really empathize
and relate to it
and understand and want to support you all the more because of it.
I love that. And I think that's spot on. As my late great mother-in-law used to say, I don't lie because there's less to remember.
Yeah.
It's great advice again for keeping it real. Look, I could talk to you all day. I would prefer to do it in the Sky apartment with a martini and looking at you in your incredible fashion, the cool side of the Instagram, which I also follow. But I'm so very grateful to be able to speak with you today, for you to say yes to coming on, but also for continuing to champion being real and being honest and being upfront, but also championing solutions to the problems that are real in this world today, and the problems that our kids and the next generations down are really finding, and that will impact our society. So thank you for all you do. Keep doing it. We're going to get you funding from Australia. I'm already racking my brains as to who I can go and talk with, and we're going to make this thing sing. So thank you so much, Cindy. Please continue to keep it real, and we'll talk to you again soon.
It's been a pleasure, Jack. Thank you.
Well, keepers, what did you think? I know somebody who absolutely has a point of view on all of this. So let's welcome back my co-host and partner in crime. How are you, Raoul?
I am good. And how was New York? Have you noticed my hat I'm wearing in honor of your New York trip?
I love it. I love it. Love the hat. NY. I love it. Oh, it was awesome. So it was Washington first, New York second, and Boston third. Had a ball. The Americans, interesting. I think we might do a podcast episode on just some of my reflections on America, and also some of the people I was speaking to, because it was pretty interesting.
There you go. I'm sure we will do.
Speaking of interesting people, what did you think of Cindy?
Yeah, so great interview. Good questions. So my initial thought was, God, she swears more than us. That was...
I'm not sure of that.
I think so. But anyway, what I really loved, it almost came all the way through her interview that she follows her values. And I thought it was really interesting right at the start that she said her career happened by accident because she just followed her values. And part of me thought, is she being humble? Like, I sort of think she's probably a bit more, strategic than that. But she clearly feels that it did happen by accident. And I love that the fact that she just kept doing that line all the way through, that if you know what your values are, they will guide you. And I think that's what she meant by her career happened by accident, that her values guided her down the path she is on now.
You're right. It was consistent. She spoke about that right from the start, and she continued to talk about that all the way through. And it seemed to be a regular response to any question I asked her. So here's the thing. Maybe that's an opportunity again for another podcast episode from you and I, because I'm sure a lot of people even aren't aware of, I wonder what my real values are, or I wonder how I find out what my values are, or am I playing to or am I lying to my values? So maybe it's a good one. Pick up on.
Well, when she said a line, something like "Life will throw shit at you," and but if you know your values, you'll know how to respond, and it will guide you. And that actually did remind me of our podcast episode we did a couple of weeks ago on triggers and glimmers, and it was like we talked about if you know your triggers, because triggers are normally going against a value that you have, that you can choose how to respond. So I love her all the way through her link back to values. I also loved when you asked how did you become so confident, and she was, she literally sort of said that she wasn't always as confident, as none of us are. But her thing was 65 years of life gave me that confidence. So,
sorry to interrupt you, but you're exactly right. And something that stuck with me the moment she said it was, but of course, what I want to do with everything I do, whether it's Make Love Not Porn, whether it's TED, talks, whether it's keynote speaking about marketing or advertising or the industry or women's equality, I want to educate women to actually have that confidence really early. Don't wait till you're 65. And the first thing I thought of is that's exactly the sort of education and I think purpose of what Keeping It Real is for us, right? Is learn by our mistakes or learn from what we've learned in order for you as a keeper or as a listener to actually get that confidence early.
Yeah, you're right. It's sort of what we do is like hopefully, gain confidence earlier, because I think everyone agrees that the older you get, the more confident you normally do get. But it doesn't mean you can't fast track that. And we hope we can contribute that in some way. I loved when you were talking about that and her 65 years of age too, where she sort of said that she cares less what other people think.
That's the kicker.
Yeah, and you know what it reminded me of, Jack? Not the fact that she says fuck a lot, but it reminded me of the second episode we did of No More Fucks to Give. Yeah. She clearly knows what she does not care about, and that's other people's opinions. And she clearly knows what she does care about. And so she's deciding not going to give a fuck about that. But my God, I am going to follow this. And her trying to raise money for her, Make Love Not Porn, she's getting so many pushbacks because, she's not getting the funding. And you and I follow her on LinkedIn, and she'll put something on LinkedIn about, stop the rape culture, and her LinkedIn post gets pulled down because it's got rape in it. And it's just like, oh my God. And so she's
frustrating.
She's fighting an uphill battle, but she's not going to give up. And
she's not going to give up. In fact, I noticed since our interview, and I follow her like you do, and pretty much hang off every word she says. I always have, because she's a rock star. I've noticed she's going so hard. She's going so hard, and she's continuing to say, "I'm putting up posts, and hardly any of my 150 million bloody followers are seeing it. I know they're not, because I can see by the engagement." And so she keeps mentioning this so people, you can reshare it or whatever. But the great thing about what we were talking about, and it was really interesting, is that what she's doing is she's trying to educate people about porn and making love and real life versus this imagination or imaginary sort of world of porn. And so schools are starting to talk to her, because this is very much about sex education, or love education, if you will. And one of the biggest consumers of porn are young men. So any keepers, who are concerned about their kids' futures, or who want to see their kids growing up, and understanding what real love is, and also that they don't have to be like a porn star, this stuff is really important, and we should absolutely be getting behind it. I'm certainly donating. I know you are too, Rael. So encourage our keepers. And she's not saying, you have to give me millions or thousands or hundreds. Every little bit helps. So if you can donate to Make Love Not Porn, and the link that we put in the show notes, please do, keepers.
Yeah. And I think what you said, it's, it's like sex education, it's like love education, it's like relationship education, because so many young men, their education is porn, and they think that's exactly what people want. And so it's a great cause. I loved her passion, like not only her values, but her passion came through so much. I love when you asked her about her mum, and because she talks to her mum a lot. In fact, I think after you interviewed her, I saw her on LinkedIn. She was heading to London.
And sure enough, there was the photograph on LinkedIn of her with her mum, and just having this lovely conversation. And her mum is really quite elderly, but clearly has been such an influence on her life, right?
Yeah. Clearly, she was amazing woman, and has such an amazing influence on Cindy's career. Yeah. And you can see where she gets it from, hearing the stories about her mum, which I loved. And
I agree.
So I loved it all. I hope our keepers liked hearing from someone else. We're very conscious. We did 2 in a row, special guests, but we did want to get this one up to help Cindy out with her funding and raising. That's why we did 2 in a row.
So can I just interrupt? April 30 is the cutoff date for her fundraising campaign. So if anyone's going to donate something, if you can do it by April 30, keepers, we would be so, so grateful, as would Stingle.
Yeah. Yes. So good job.
Thank you.
Job. You're back in the land of Oz, the fabulous land of Oz.
I'm back in the land of no tariffs or less tariffs. I'm back in the land of when I buy a coffee, I don't have to add another 50% to it because our dollar is so low. I'm back home, and it's bloody autumn here, and it's beautiful. And the weather's been kind, and I sort of got some sleep last night. So it's so good to be home, and it's so good to see you. And hey, Fiji's coming.
Oh, I know. Fiji is coming. We got another couple of people sign up today. So
not too late.
Handful of spots left. If you want to come, let us know, and we will send you the details. But good job, Jack. Well done.
Thank you. Wow.
Thanks,
Great
keepers. Another episode of Keeping It Real. We will be back to regular format podcasting next week.
Bye.
Bye.